Hey guys, it's Andy from Mediocre Hobbies here, bringing you a kind of requested video. So I showed you guys how to paint up some of the new Horus Heresy tanks over the last couple of weeks using the Artist Opus dry brush style, a lot of stippling, some dry brushing, and some weathering. I really like the result. Some people did have some questions as to whether or not you could transfer my infantry videos over to painting larger miniatures. So for anyone that's unaware, I have done 18 Legion videos, so a video on how to paint each and every one of the Legions from the Horus Heresy. And now people are wondering whether these are transferable up to larger miniatures. So today I'm going to test that theory and I'm going to paint a Leviathan Dreadnought. And I'm going to use the exact same method I use for painting my Sons of Horus infantry and character, so that he will match in perfectly. I think the Rhino I did fits in quite well, but this should alleviate any fears that any other people have. Just before we get into the video, I just want to say that it means a lot to me that you guys are here watching my video. If you are enjoying them, make sure you drop a like, and if you haven't already, subscribing to the channel is very important to me and the success of this whole project. So if you would take 2 seconds out of your day and hit that subscribe button, it would mean a lot to me. Okay guys, let's get into painting. Okay, so unfortunately I was not one of the lucky few who were sent a plastic Leviathan Dreadnought, so we're going to have to suffer through this with the Forge World resin one. There was a little few complications because it was the resin one. The surface was a little bit more porous, which means it grabbed the shade a little bit more, which led to a tiny bit of splodging, but we'll just ignore that for now. So as per the normal Sons of Horus scheme that I do, we started with a Terradon Turquoise all over the armor panels. Because of the porous surface that the resin was giving me, it was trying to grip the shade a lot more. So more time was required kind of pulling away like drips and drops to make sure that they weren't going to pool and give you kind of a nasty surface. Now in a scheme like this, it doesn't matter too much because we're going to be layering over the top of it. For any of these heresy schemes where you're leaving it at a contrast stage, you want to be a little bit more careful, making sure that there is no pooling. If you're working on the new plastic one, you won't have this issue. If you see my Imperial Fist one, you will see how quick and easy and smooth contrast does apply to tanks. If you're working on any of the old Forge World resin ones, just be aware of this fact. It will take a little bit more time to make sure that you're going to control the shade and not have it pool in places that you don't want to. So for instance, when I layered this, like that huge blob of Terradon Turquoise onto this miniature here, it just sat in that one spot, and then I had to work it through and keep pulling it around. I was using the tank or the Dreadnought as like a palette for the shade. It kept going back to that pool, pulling a bit more, applying it back and forth, and just making sure that it wasn't going to stay that super dark color that it was there. Bit of a pain in the backside, but we worked our way through it. See me here going back to the large amount that I left at the start until the actual blue starts to show through. You can see the rough texture of the resin right there. It's absolutely bizarre. But I do love Leviathan Dreadnoughts, and I did get my hands on or have ordered the plastic one, so I'll be doing that up as an Imperial Fist one whenever it decides to arrive. And I'm very much looking forward to that process more than the resin one here. I also built this resin one when the resin one first came out, so I've had this for quite a number of years. But that's enough complaining about the model. We'll soldier on through the rest of this video. So here it is with all the Terradon Turquoise applied to all the armor panels. Now it's time to black out all the other parts. So for this, we're going to go to Black Templar. And this is like for the exoskeleton of the entire Dreadnought. I like to put this down as kind of a first coat to doing metallic silvers and stuff. If you have watched my Imperial Fist video that came out last week, Saturday, sorry, you will see how I do this process, but I will show you again in this video if you haven't caught that video. 2 videos in a row being Dreadnoughts, but no complaints from me. Dreadnoughts are some of my favorite things in the 40k universe. So just carefully go through the Black Templar across all of the other parts of the miniature that aren't the Terradon Turquoise armor panels. Like I said, this is more important on some of the schemes where you leave it as just the contrast layer. on one that's like this. It's not too bad if you accidentally hit another piece, because we will be layering up afterwards, but the less you hit, the more work we'll have later on. We're going to give all of those black parts now a light dry brush of silver, just to catch the edges and start the kind of silver processing. Once again, this is another stage that if you're leaving it at the contrast stage, you might not want to do this bit, as you will hit the armor panels a little bit, and because you're not layering back up again, it will kind of shine through as mistakes. Unless you're going super light, then you can just kind of pay it off as chipping or whatever. As you can see, I didn't hit the armor a lot while I was doing this dry brushing stage, but I have a lot of experience with dry brushing, but it's up to you what you want to do. Next, I went on to null and oiling the entire miniature. I just want to darken it all down and make sure that the recesses are really nice and deep for the layering stage. This is what I do on my Sons of Horus infantry videos, and the one I did for my Praetor, Sons of Horus Praetor, all exactly the same steps. Next, time to move on to the Sons of Horus layer paint, and this is where we are going to start being super neat and tidy, and we're going to layer up all of the armor panels on this Sons of Horus Leviathan. On power armored pieces, you can get away with one coat most of the time. Certain parts of infantry, like shoulder pads or maybe the helmet or the backpack bits that are going to be standing out on the battlefield, you may want to give a second coat to. On the Leviathan Dreadnought, all of those panels are big and flat, and some of the color will shine through. So if you want a solid coat, make sure you're giving it 2 thin coats. Because we have built up the color using the Terradon Turquoise, it's going on super effectively. Nice and smooth. Here's the legs done. Well, first coat anyway. Come back and do the second coat to it in a moment. Now it's time to work up those big flat armored panels. As you can see, I'm taking my time. I'm leaving all of the little nooks and crannies, all those little square parts, or bits that act like separate panels. And I'm going to make sure that the lines all around them stay nice and dark. And that will really accentuate that nice shade stage that we did. These are the panels that will of course stand out the most on this piece. So you're going to want to take your time with them. So there they are with one coat. And here's me going in with the second coat. And you can see the impact the second coat has on the paint job. It immediately gives you then this nice smooth layer with great coverage. And all we're going to do is repeat this process across the entire Dreadnought until we have something that looks like this. Nice, neat, tidy armor panels. We're going to go over to Corvus Black now, and we're just going to use this to layer up some of the armor panels on like the weapons. We're going to do the helmet as well, the bit that runs around the top of the missile launcher, Havoc launcher, whatever it's called. I'm not 100% sure the heresy name for the shoulder mounted rockets on the Templar Dreadnought. Maybe it's a Typhoon launcher. I don't know. So I'm going to do the helmet, and then of course there's like casings on both of the guns and the tips of the quad auto cannons. Then we're going to do those in the black as well. I took this opportunity now to throw on all the different transfers that I wanted. It was a hard decision deciding where they were going to go and which ones they were going to be. But in the end, I think I went for the right amount in the right places, and I think it really stood out. Ironbreaker is then used to layer up all of those metallic bits. So all those bits that I gave a light dry brush to, it's time to hit all of the higher points of those with the Ironbreaker as a highlight. So for instance, on the barrels of the quad cannon, we're just going to do the tops and the sides of the barrels, places that light is going to hit if the light is coming straight down on top of it. And we're going to leave all the undersides that nice dark shaded metallic. This will give a really nice effect, and it's super quick and easy to do. So you don't have to panic too much about the getting every nook and cranny. We just want to give the illusion of a nice paint job. I'm going to jump to the sides. See, we're going to see the side of the barrel below it. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with this kind of chest grill part, so I decided quite late into the paint job to do it in gold. You probably could have done this before the black wash stage and then use the black wash to shade it down. That's probably what I would have done if I could go back. But as it stands, I didn't think about it. So I did this, and those kind of 6 bolts that run around the side of it, I did those in gold as well. Just to add a little bit of extra color. Right now I thought the scheme looked a little bit bland. I thought it needed just a little pop of color. So I went for gold and red for the rockets. This was another really quick, simple step, but I think it added to the kind of paint scheme quite well. As soon as the camera decides to focus, that is. This is another stage where you want to take your time. The black is finished, the green is finished. You don't want to be hitting any of those parts because then you're going to have to go back and try and fix the mistakes. And covering over red is quite difficult. We're going to go back to our Ironbreaker and we're going to touch up all the golds as like a highlight stage. So like I said, if we had done the gold at the start before the Nolan oil, when we were going in with Ironbreaker before this to kind of layer up all of the gun and all the other metallic parts, we would have done the gold at the same time. I was really pleased with the result of the gold parts. Like I said, I thought it really acted like that cherry on top. For color, it really broke up the amount of blue on those big flat panels. Unlike other legions, the transfers on these guys aren't extremely interesting either, so they didn't really give you a lot of color, a lot of pop from the flat panels. But yeah. Next, we are going to use Abaddon Black. And it's time to add a little bit of weathering and damage to this. Like I've said in multiple videos before, my Legion armies are going to be based around the Siege and late Heresy eras. Everything is going to be chipped and worn and battle damaged and weathered. It's the way I like it. So I'm using the sponge technique with a little bit of Abaddon Black, and I'm just adding scratches to the surface of this. Remember, this thing is known as Siege Dreadnought. Its job is to walk up in front of a hail of fire and puncture through fortresses and provide support and overwatch fire. So it is going to have a lot of little chips and damage on it as everything under the sun takes pot shots at it as it crosses the battlefield. Showed a lot more of the stippling the sponge. As you can see, I'm not particularly careful when I'm doing it. Once I have the right amount of paint on my sponge, you can kind of just go ham, and all it will do is add little dots of black to the miniature. Last but by no means least, I'm going to add some of my favorite weathering powder. This is what I use for anything that's based on that Martian scheme base. So a lot of my Sons of Horus tanks and all my infantry have it around their feet and stuff. That's exactly what I'm going to do here. I'm going to feed it around the feet and then any other parts of the miniature where it would settle. So I'm actually going to go for the creases between the head and those big shoulder panels, those big crevices. I'm going to feed some of it into there. A lot of the back pieces, there's like vents and that kind of feed oxygen to the engine of the power pack. I'm going to feed it in there. Obviously, if that's sucking in air, it's going to be capturing a lot of dust and dirt. And all the little cracks and crevices and stuff will also catch a little bit. So use it as much or as little as you like, or not at all. If you like your tanks to be a little bit more pristine than this, then skip this stage and the sponging stage, and it will be a kind of pristine Dreadnought at the start of the Heresy, or something that's looked after a little bit more than my war machines. But this is a quick and simple step. It adds a lot of detail, makes it look like you've put a lot more effort in than you have. And this is my finished Sons of Horus Leviathan Dreadnought, using my contrast and layering techniques that I use for all my infantry. This guy will of course blend seamlessly in with my infantry. And you can use this technique on this or anything bigger, or Rhino, Spartan, Kratos, anything that you want to do, this technique will work for. All in all, I'd say there's about 2 hours of painting in this guy. So 2 hours of painting to have a war machine like this on the table, I think is pretty damn good.
Okay guys, and there we have it. A Leviathan Dreadnought painted up using the same style as I did for my infantry. Some people will ask in the comments, is there any point in contrasting up if you're just going to layer back up over the armor afterwards? I've had that question quite a few times, and what I will say to that is absolutely. You need to build up colors to make sure you get a nice strong coat. You can do it with Sons of Horus Green, but you will be doing layer after layer after layer. The Terradon Turquoise acts a fantastic base coat for the next layer of paints, and by leaving that in the recesses all shaded, it makes the miniature look like it has a lot more depth. So thank you guys so much for sticking with me till the end of this video. If you have any questions about anything that I did,
drop it in the comments below and I'll get back to each and every one of you guys. If you see value in what I do and want to support me and the channel even further, there's links to things like my Patreon below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.